record. Today won't be real long for obvious distractions, but I do want to stress a few things that I have been doing. So let me go back to the screen share. Here we go, desktop one, share. There we go. All right. And for the sake of argument, I'm going to turn off my video here. Okay. The screen share you're looking at is basically the Canvas hello. And the way I'm going to calculate the grades is as follows. The way the grades work is I've got most everything caught up on the grades. And basically what I do is I extract everything. I export the grades down to a grade book or a Excel file. And what ends up happening is that, now I'm not going to bring everybody's grades up for obvious reasons because this doesn't really show anything yet because I have to do some Excel magic. But what I want to show you, missing fonts and lots of, okay, fine. So that means it's going to hang. Interesting. Oh well, plan B. Isn't this fun? Okay, so let me open up a previous copy and give you what the total top line grades are. You have 1,241 points, okay? That's everything across all of the stuff. Now, what ends up happening in our grades is you have Testout and also you have the CompTIA. So obviously I can't, in all fairness, I can't say, I want you to take all of them, all of these practice exam, because there would be no, that's just too much time. So pick one, either the CompTIA or the Testout Linux Pro. So these, you see there's only 18 here. And let me click on this and then move over. Darn it. Sometimes I really do not like the way Canvas navigates things. All right, let me go back. Do this over again. Well, maybe I'll do it this way. Because the final exam, if you want to call it that, is your certification. But I'm not asking you to do that because some of you say, hey, I want to do the Linux Pro. I really do want to pass that certification. But this certification, I don't feel ready for. That's completely okay. After today, I'm going to enable it, but I will not grade you on it. Linux Pro, this one here, I'm just going to turn it on right now.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can't you only take that test one time?
You are correct.
So we should wait and be really prepared.
Right. That's exactly what I'm getting at here, is the exam to enable this. You can take it one time for free with the included course content. But if you don't pass it, you can't put Linux Pro on your resume. To take it again, you need to pay $35 to Testout, and they allow you to take it a second time. So if you know you want to do the Linux Pro, my recommendation is study up on it more, away from the distraction of other classes. just focus on the content and focus on the practice exams and don't do anything else. Just focus, 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 because eventually what will happen is that when you go to sit down for the test, you'll be mentally ready. Now, certification exams are what we call high stakes. In other words, pass, fail, this is it. And you don't get much of a redo on it, which is, that's just the way it is with certifications. And I've taken so many certification tests, I've kind of lost count. But here's some techniques that I have found useful. One, now I'm going to make notes of this. So,
You lost sound.
Pardon, lost sound?
Oh, we did for a minute. Maybe it was just me.
Oh, no, it wasn't you. I've got earbuds on. And if I turn my head too much, the microphone slips away from my mouth. But the techniques that I've used for certifications, I'll bring up another window to make notes of this stuff.
I have a question. So can we do the pre-exams before the, like we can do those as many times?
Exactly. The ones
Okay.
that you see on your screen where it says test out domain 2, 3, 4, practice exam. You can take those as many times as you want. Okay. So there's
Okay,
no.
I have another question. Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
I have another one about how close are the practice exams to the actual certification test?
Really
material?
close.
Yeah.
Really
Okay.
close. But don't memorize the answers. Here's what you'll find. You'll have scenario A. It says, okay, this client, it's Windows. What command do you need? And the answer will be IP config. On the certification exam, you'll have a very, very similar question, except they'll ask about Linux. And the answer will be IF or IF config. So when you create your cheat sheets, the way I would study for these is I would basically take one of them, any one of them cold, like all these practice questions here. I would take it cold and see which ones I missed and say, oh, that was just stupid. Or I'd say, oh, I really don't know that. And then I'd go back to the content and study up some more. Okay. So
you mentioned we can access this course after the semester.
Yes, the way that works is you contact Testout, you tell them you were in this course, and basically all they do is they allow your Yosemite EDU to access the course. They just unbundle you from Canvas, but you have to request it from them. Okay.
And we have to request them to synchronize our grades, right?
Well, after you pull out and you're separate, the grades no longer go back to Canvas. So you can kind of do what you want to do with the grades.
Oh, okay. I was talking about for this course because I've been dragging my feet and calling them and telling them to get asking them to get my grades synced up.
Yeah. Oh,
But,
have your grades synced? Have you checked them lately?
I don't believe they have.
Because one of the things that they rolled out at the beginning of the semester is an auto grading. But
Yeah, it's hit or miss. Like if I don't access the course exactly through Canvas on every module, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a known bug. That's a known bug.
Yeah.
You do have to access specifically through Canvas to have it go back to Canvas.
Is that going to affect our grade if it's not synced up?
I'll make sure you get a copy of the spreadsheet so you kind of know where we're coming in on, because I can go through and fix it, but I need to know if I need to fix it, is kind of what I'm saying.
Okay, because I took this class a couple of semesters ago and I had stuff that I'd done already then that they still have on the Testout website that I've completed, but it's not transferring over to Canvas.
Now, in that case, give me when you took it. Did you take it from me?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, then I would have access to that class, and I'll be able to splice your two grade sets together.
Okay.
Okay, but you need to let me know that and put that in an email for follow-up.
Okay. I'll email it right now.
So yes, the practice exams are very close to the real thing. And here's what I've noticed in my students. Even students with a strong Linux background get thrown by the Linux exam because it covers so many different topics. Okay. So it does take more than just one semester to really learn the content. But of all the certification exams that I teach, if you want to call it that, or the ones that I have had the most positive feedback for getting a job, it's the Linux Plus. The Network Plus usually means, yeah, you know networking, but can you do other things too? And they may want you to take the A plus or the Security Plus because you'll be working with Linux. When you learn Linux, you end up having to learn a bunch of networking to get through it. Okay, that's just kind of the way it is. When CompTIA rewrote the Linux Plus a couple years ago, they made it a very fair exam because they incorporate all the different package managers and virtual machine hypervisors that you will be using in industry. Okay, so there's just a lot of content. So it lends itself to really good jobs and to the interview. Okay, so it's worth the time to get, and it's also worth a pay raise depending on where you are. So you take these as many times as you want, because every time you take them, even though it's 9 points, you get a different set of questions. Okay, I believe it was that way a couple semesters ago. Now that they're implementing this auto grading thing that didn't work, so we'll see how it evolves. But this Linux Pro cert, I will enable, so you have the option to take it if you want. Now, here's one way to approach this. You do your best. You study everything. You take it and you say, oh, I didn't pass. No harm, no foul. It doesn't cost you anything. But now you know where your weaknesses are, so you can go back and really study up. Because in the big scheme of things, $35 is pretty cheap for a certification exam. I remember paying $800 for my PMI exam. And then when you don't pass it the first time, that's an expensive redo. So the other thing I need to mention to you is the CompTIA stuff. Some employers only take CompTIA. And let me explain where that fits in this. I kind of explained this a little bit in the beginning, but it's been a long semester for everybody. CompTIA may be on a job resume, okay? The Linux Pro is in essence the same content as Linux Plus at a slightly more difficult level. So if you pass the Linux Pro at say 90%, you are going to pass the Linux Plus. So you take your time, do really well on the Linux Pro, you also pass the Linux Plus, you now have 2 Linux certifications. A lot of employers don't know the difference, that they are basically the same content, okay? So it looks really good on a resume with multiple certs. The same goes for the Network Plus and because we teach the Network Plus the same way. Now, with the CompTIA, you can get a big discount, okay? All right. So if there's other ways to study up for this. There's all kinds of ways. Let's see here. Exam details, it tells you it's 90 minutes and you got to pass with 720. And you get one shot, $348. You're going, wait a minute, that's a lot of money for the Linux Plus. Or this one's Network Plus, or they recommend you have Network Plus under your belt. Okay. You're right. That is a lot of money. But there is this, I think it's Academy. Store CompTIA. That's it. Academic. They keep changing the name. The vouchers here are significantly cheaper, but you have to have your student email address. They will not issue this to a .com. You have to use the .edu to be able to get it. So make note of that.
Where do we take the Linux Pro?
You actually have to drive somewhere to take it. It's through View Prometric. So you actually have to go. In my day, I had to go to Sacramento for all of those. Sometimes you could get by with Stockton, but I believe there's a place in Ceres called Wise Guys or PC Wise Guys that you can take some certification exams, but I don't know which ones they offer. So you have to check. But to find that, you would first you say details, you go into the details. You have to register with them first. You register with CompTIA saying, hey, I want to take this. Once you pay for it, you can actually study for an entire year before you actually have to take the test. And it tells you about it. So you go to Pearson View. And again, you have to register with Pearson View. And then you can find out where to take the exam here. Okay. And at one time, we were going to set up a Pearson View testing center in the CAT building, but all that went to, vaporization when COVID hit. So we still do not have an on-campus testing facility for Pearson View. Someday, I hope to have one because that'd be good for the community. All right. So that's what you have to do. You register, and then when you show up for your test, you have to prove your identity. Okay. So driver's license, passport, blood type. They want to know that you are the person taking the exam to avoid some of the problems they had with the SAT and the fiascos with people being professional test takers, taking it on behalf of somebody else. Okay. The Linux Testout Pro, you can take free for once. Okay. And that's the one that I will enable down here. And if you want to take it again, it's $35. Okay.
And that's online?
It's online. I do believe they use a camera to verify that you are, and you hold up your license plate, but or your driver's license. And I believe they do it online because you already have a track record of being in the course. So they see how well you've done in the course, and their analytics are pretty good, and they'll kind of know if you're going to pass or not. So they can see based on your previous work if you're a good candidate to passing. Okay. All right. Does that make as much sense as mud?
Yeah.
I get it. It's a mess, but this is kind of the future, is that people are going to want to see a degree, but they're going to want to see certifications too, especially in the world of IT. And I got a note from somebody that said, "Hey, I was trying to get a job with the county or the state. I don't remember which, but they don't even require a high school diploma, but they require certifications. So that says something. So if you can get your certifications out of the way, it's going to be much easier to get the interview. Okay. And I know I've told this story. I don't know if I've told it in this class, but I had a student come back to school and he already knew Linux at a really high level. And I learned a bunch of stuff from him. And when he passed the Linux Plus, this goes back about 8 years, I guess. At that time, if you passed the Linux Plus, it gave you the CompTIA, the Red Hat level 1, the SUSE level 1, and the LPI level 1. So you pass one exam and you qualify to pass all these other exams, you ended up with 5 certifications. You just had to go through the process of passing them all. And this guy did. So he got an interview at Linode, and guess what? He went in for help desk. They wouldn't let him leave. He ended up being the tier 3 or tier 1 engineer, and his help rolled out their enterprise. And Linode just got purchased by a big company for $900 million. So the owner had divvied up the checks to people who have been with the company since the early days. And he was one of those guys that was there in the early days. So he probably has a really nice payday. But it all started with passing the Linux Plus. And it's a good story to tell. But he was also extremely motivated. He set up a network at home. He set up all sorts of things like squid proxies and reverse shell proxies and all kinds of trippy things that are way outside the scope of a Linux Plus exam, much more in the scope of the higher end Red Hat certifications that you see today. Like, how do you manage a mail server? How do you manage a web server? How do you set up Let's Encrypt on a mail server and make your mail secure, so on and so forth. Okay. All right. So that's kind of where we are on the grades. And I will be posting so knowing that you need 1,241 points, just accumulative. So this is the time to go through and start looking at what's missed and saying, hey, I need a grade extension on something, or hey, I didn't turn in this assignment. Hey, I need to do this. I need to do that. Now's the time to do it. Okay. Because the grades pretty much have to be finalized the week after finals. And at the moment, there's a lot of empty blanks in the curriculum. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can find what I'm looking for. Okay. Yeah, it's giving me some funny. Let me look to see Linux Pro. I guess they took out the CompTIA stuff. So you can see where you rack up your points are these practice exams at the end of each chapter. Yeah, they don't have the comp. Last semester, they had a bank of questions under exams that were all CompTIA, so you could study for both at the same time. This is a little deceiving. Oh, there's only 33 questions. It shouldn't be that hard. Yeah, it's testing for everything in storage and file systems, which comprises several chapters. Okay, so it's kind of a mixed bag. So you may do pretty well on this, on just the domain. But the problem is when you go to take the exam, there's going to be questions that are outside of that bank of 33 that may throw you. Okay.
I have another question.
Fire away.
So do we lose points? Do we have to watch those videos? Because I feel like I get more out of the, basically the fact sheet and then going straight to the test, or do we have to watch the videos that can affect my grade?
I believe, like, for example, it's like 1 point. They're not very much in the big scheme of things.
Okay.
Where you get your points are the assignments.
The lab.
Yeah, these and the stuff I've assigned you, like the letter lab and risk versus CISC. That's like 100 points there.
Okay.
And then binary decimal, virtualization. If you need to redo those, let me know and I can open up the dates.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem on those. Or if you missed them, that seems to be the case. You just missed them for whatever reason. Okay. Okay. So it kind of is clear as mud. One, you'll have the test out when it says 100 points. When I enable it, I'll make it worth like 1 point. So it won't impact your grade at all. But if you want to take it, that's fine. And I'll give you extra credit for taking it. It may help your study. It may not. But I've had students saying, I really don't care. I just want the points so I can get my grade. Well, getting a good grade in this class does not equal job. Getting a passing score on the certification is much more likely to equal a job than a high grade. Does that make sense? Because this is the pushback I'm getting from vendors, not vendors, employers. They want people that have certifications, because what this means is you come in with a base level of knowledge, which means you're educable. They can teach you what they need to have you know. If you come in with a straight A average in an AA degree, let's say underwater basket weaving, they have no idea what you know or what you don't know. Okay. And it doesn't matter what the title is on the degree. Okay. It could be anything. I had one said music and another one that said general studies. So you still have to prove it, portfolio or certification exam. Okay. So let me give you some pointers on when you go in for the cert or when you sit down for the cert. One, wear earplugs. Okay. That's very, very helpful. Two is if you take an exam, I have found it helpful to read the question kind of to yourself out loud, but not so loud that would disturb other test takers. But if you're doing it home in your office, whatever, that won't matter. But if you actually audibly read the question, you will actually catch small things in things like prepositional phrases, the of, in, at. Most of us read too fast and we skip those things. And if we skip those things, we get the wrong answer. Okay. So read audibly. And there is some credence to the idea of chewing gum while you're taking a test. Now, the evidence to this is somewhat mixed, but if you're chewing gum, it stimulates some of the blood flow in the salivary glands and in the jaw muscles. As a byproduct, you get more blood flow to the head, not necessarily brain, but to the head and scalp. Okay. So chewing gum, it can't hurt, but the evidence is a little mixed. I always used to chew gum because, you know, it gave me something to do while I was so nervous. Because you get nervous going into these exams. And the other thing I would do is I would skim through maybe the first 10 questions, and because you have to mark them, mark for review, mark for review. If you don't do that, it will be marked as wrong. So mark for review, and then go back. And then what I did is I would just say, do first 10 questions, mark for review, go back to them, and I'd look at the simplest question I could find out of that group of 10. And then I'd answer that question, knowing I had the right answer. And then I'd go through and pick a few more. And then, okay, and uncheck for pick a review. And then say, okay, this, I know I got the right answer, hit go. And then go on and do this. So use that button, mark for review. If you don't know, mark it and go on. If you don't know, mark. It's okay if you get 10 questions in a row you don't know, because eventually the questions are going to trigger something, and you can learn. I have found you can often get answers from the test or about the test off the test. So if you read through the entire test first, you can often find answers to other questions. Okay. That's a really good practice, but in the online arena, they make that a little bit clumsy because you have to go through and mark for review on every single question. Okay. So that's, I have found that to be helpful. Read through the entire test first. Okay. And usually, like if you're going to go to View Prometric, they will not let you bring in your phone. You can't even use your own pencil. They give you scratch paper, they give you a calculator, and they give you a pen. Okay. And I would take notes as I was going through the test, because these notes that I took, I may need later on in the test. So if I knew I had the right answer, I'd just scribble some notes to myself. Problem is, when you leave, you cannot take your scratch paper with you. You have to confiscate it. They get confiscated, but that's okay. If you're like most people, once you write something down, you kind of going to remember it. Like if you have a shopping list and you write down your 5 items, you almost always never have to go back and look at the shopping list. Okay. It's just the way it works when you write things down. Okay. It's just the way our brain is wired. Okay. Okay. Is that making more sense on where this class is kind of finishing out?
Yeah.
Okay, because I kind of want to finish early today and give you time to do nothing but work on Testout, because I'm going to stay online and then I can answer you questions if there's something sticky in Testout. Now, when we're in the classroom, I do this same thing, but online it's a little awkward. So feel free to use the chat or just open your mic and say something and go from there. So on that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to stop the recording.